Hey everyone, it's April Schluter from the Cheerful Mind. I am a happiness and productivity coach, and today I'm here with my dear friend Graham Russell, who is a leadership and relationship coach. And the reason that we're getting together today is we are talking about relationships. This is one of the chapters in my book, and I had asked a whole bunch of people, what questions do you have about relationships? And we know that relationships don't just show up as an intimate relationship with a significant other, but it shows up in the workplace, it shows up with families, and it shows up with friends. So relationships are everywhere. And there's also the relationship with yourself. So this is going to be a really powerful conversation that we're going to have today. I have handpicked 3 really powerful questions about relationship, and Graham and I are going to just bang it out and answer them. And I chose Graham to sit with me on this conversation because he has some amazing perspective on relationships, being the coach that he is. And so thank you, Graham, for being here with me today.
Well, thank you for asking. It's a pleasure.
And do you want to maybe share a little bit about who you are and, what got you to focusing on leadership and relationships?
Yeah, I suppose in a nutshell, my background is in television. I used to work as an art director, and then at some point I just wanted a change of career direction, and ended up retraining to become a coach, which then took me into leadership. And the leadership work that I did was kind of like coaching on some sort of drug. It was just so powerful. And then my parents, at the age of, they're in their 80s, decided to split up. And although for many people that might have felt like a shock, it wasn't. It was a long time coming. But it really got me thinking about, what is it that keeps people together when they don't want to be together? And why is it that you can live a whole life, till you're well into your 80s, and not be happy? And the reason is we just don't get any training on being in a relationship. It's the key thing that kind of that makes life go round, is being in a relationship. Being in a relationship, as you said, being in a relationship with a significant other. It could be a relationship with yourself. It could be in a relationship with your work colleagues. But nowhere in our life curriculum do we get any kind of relationship training. And so that kind of took me into that sort of relationship route, and did some sort of extra training in relationships, especially like the Prepare and Rich, which is a great model for 2 couples to come together, both taking, like a questionnaire, and then that questionnaire comes together and you can actually see what their relationship looks like, what they're good at and what they need to improve on. So I suppose in a nutshell, that's kind of really what took me into that relationship route. And in leadership, relationship is so important. It's kind of one of the first things you really learn. You learn about relationship with yourself first, and then relationship with other people.
Absolutely. Love that. And so we're going to talk just about a little snippet of some questions that came in to me over the last month. I've been focusing on this month of February as talk on relationships, and this is one of the chapters in my book. So it's a really important topic to me. So should we just dive into the very first question?
Yeah, please do.
All right. So this first question was, how do I not feel super bitter about my past and be able to want a relationship again? And so I'm assuming that this is more towards love relationships. And so why don't you take a crack at it? What are your thoughts on this question?
Yeah, so being super bitter. Well, anything that we kind of feel is a choice. So I'd always come down to, you're choosing. If you're feeling super bitter, if you're feeling bitter about a past relationship, just to know that's a choice that you're making. And that's can be quite hard to hear that, but it's true. Because you could feel bitter about your past relationship, or you could not feel bitter about it, or you could feel that there was some really great nuggets and some really great learning about that past relationship. So there are various choices that you can make about that past relationship, and it's really easy, and I've done it myself. That's kind of that initial reaction. It's their fault. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
also, so there's the choice that you're making, but also there'll be some stories that you're making up about that relationship, and particularly about the person that you've broken up from. So ask yourself, what's the story that I'm making up here? There are some assumptions that you will be making up, because at some point your relationship wasn't bitter. At some point it was wonderful, and it blossomed, and you were in love, and it was just so fantastic. And then something happened, and then there would be some stories you're making up, and you'll be elaborating on those stories. And that's not a criticism, because that's just who we are as human beings. We just love stories. And when we know bits about people, and then there are bits that we don't know, we fill those gaps in, and those are the assumptions, those are the stories that we make up, because we, as human beings, we like to make sense of everything. And so when a relationship breaks up, we've got all the bits that make up a relationship, and even when we're separate, we might hear little bits of snippets about how they're doing, and then we'll make up all the bits in between. And all those assumptions really start to kind of toxify that relationship even more. So I would say, it's the choices. Know that that's a choice that you're making. What are the stories that you're making up? What are all those bits in between? What are those assumptions? And those assumptions are often, perhaps always about us, because we can't fill in a story about someone that we don't know. We don't know what it is. We can't fill that up only from stuff from our experience, from our life. We can only fill that in from our experience. So those assumptions are just about us, really about us. And it's kind of a hard lesson. It's really tough that bitterness is, just take a look at yourself and think, actually, where am I feeling bitter? What are these stories? What are these bits?
Yeah.
So it's a good opportunity to really, gently and lovingly kind of look at yourself and your own relationship with yourself and your own relationship.
Yeah. I totally agree. And I think that, one of the perspectives that I always like to think about is, even though it brings up this feeling of bitterness and, something that triggers you, it's one of those things that helps you identify what it is that you don't want. If you don't, sometimes it's good to know, sometimes you need to experience what you don't want in order to figure out what it is that you do want. And, one of my exes who I still talk to, and we had a pretty crazy, tumultuous relationship for a long time. And, for a while I could have been really, really bitter about it, but it's really taught me a lot about, what is important in relationship to me. And I talk about this in my book, so I'm not going to go into it, but to be able to look at it from a place of compassion and say, I learned something from this, and now it's given me more clarity to find what it is that I want in relationship. I think that that's also a super powerful way to look at it, in very simple and almost in a more positive spin. Instead of being bitter about it, ask yourself, what is the learning? And, in your next mate, what will not be there?
Yeah, and relationships are just great mirrors as well, because there's definitely learning there. And it's kind of, if that person was a mirror, what are they reflecting back to me? Where do I need to change in preparation for my next relationship?
Great. Awesome. I think that's good. Should we go on to the next one?
Yeah, let's do.
Awesome. Okay. I like this question because I feel like this is the key question for all of my clients and potential clients and the people that I most love to serve. So the question is, how do we prioritize, in other words, make time for our relationships that mean the most to us? So this can be friends, family, spouse, children. Because many times we let our busy careers and everything else get in the way, and it's hard. So especially for those people who have families, trying to juggle being a parent and then being a career person and a friend and a lover, and all of those things. So what thoughts do you have on that question?
Okay, well, a couple of thoughts come to mind. So the first one, and it's a great little exercise to do, is to get a piece of paper and right in the middle of the piece of paper put a little dot and just say that's you. Okay, that's me. And then draw a circle around that, and then draw a bigger circle around that one. You're going to demonstrate?
I'm going to do it, yeah.
So you've got you in the middle, and then in that inner circle, those are that is your inner circle. That's your really close relationships, people that are really close to you. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't have to mean that's your family, because you might not get on well with them, but those are your really close, those are the people that are really, really matter to you. Mm-hmm. Then in the outer circle, then you can put those people that just don't quite fit that inner circle. Yeah, that's it. Okay. So they demand less time and less attention to you. Okay, so this could be people, this could also be other things as well. This could be, you could put your career in there as well, or jobs that you do. It could be hobbies that you do, things that you spend time on. And then beyond that outer circle mm-hmm. is everything else. So that's just a simple little exercise for you to really get focused and clear who's important to you and what's important to you in your life.
Great.
Your dog, it could be some community work that you do. It's almost kind of like listing it, making a list of your priorities.
That's great.
So the second thing that came to mind with that question is again, it's about choice. It's really about choosing what you want in your life. Who do you want in your life? What are the experiences that you want in your life? And there's a book that was introduced to me quite a few years ago by, she was a singer-songwriter, Australian lady called Bronnie Ware. I don't know whether you've heard of her. Mm. She wrote this book called The Top 5 Regrets of Dying. And in her work, she somehow sort of became a sort of palliative care nurse. And she went round to people who were dying, and she would sit with them when the family went off to work and did all their stuff. And she went from one person, and then somebody said, oh, so-and-so's dying, so she went to that person. It wasn't a career choice of her, it just happened, and she kind of enjoyed it as well. Mm-hmm. And after a while, after a few years, she realized that these people that were dying were all saying the same thing. One of them was, I wish I didn't work so hard. Mm. Every single man that died said that thing. Every single one. I wished I didn't work so hard. We work so hard, yeah. And that's a choice, and it's sad that you have to get to the end of your life in those dying hours or those dying days, and that comes that realization that I wished I didn't work so hard. It was such a deep, deep regret. Mm. Another one of hers was, I wish I'd been more in touch with my friends, that their friendship had died or just dwindled away, and some really golden relationships, golden friendships that people had just disappeared. And then once they're kind of gone, it is hard to sort of rekindle those. And that was, another of the 5 of the 5 regrets of dying. So this is all about choice as we go through life. Always kind of looking at that end picture, because the surest thing that's going to happen to all of us is that we're going to die. We're only here for so many years. We don't know how many years that is. We don't know what the purpose of life is. But it's just knowing this is temporary, that you don't have to work so hard. You don't have to spend all your time. It's just the choice. It's getting everything into perspective.
Yeah, I think I think that's so powerful. I mean, I think that using that analogy of, if you were on your deathbed, what would be the most, 1 or 2 crucial things that you would regret not having spent more time doing?
Yeah.
And then, and that could just be even a good start for people who feel overwhelmed and busy and don't know how to make more time, is to just ask yourself, if you were on your deathbed, what would you feel like you didn't give enough time to? And then going for that action to say, okay, write that down. You can also go through the exercise with the inner circle and outer circle. I really, really like that. I actually have a list of my top 20 of, who do I need to see and who do I need to talk to, and slowly kind of check off the list and make commitments to actually seeing them, whether it be, setting up dinner or something like that. And things come in the way, but just having that core. But I think also just starting by the most crucial things and saying, how can I even just make, 30 minutes of undevoted time to that, and slowly start to build that relationship from, from smaller to bigger, so that regret wouldn't be so strong.
And it's also about, on a practical level, making time for that, so that when you come in from work, you consciously create an hour or half an hour together just to be together, or have, some couples will come in from work and they just need like half an hour just to sort of decompress, have a shower, change, whatever, and then come together. And making it conscious. These are all about conscious choices. That, when I come home from work and when you come home from work, we do our own bit for half an hour, and then we sit down and we'll talk about our day and we'll talk about each other, and that's the thing that we do before we make supper or take the kids or whatever. And all these things need to be conscious choices, and that's the thing in relationships, is couples kind of get together and everything just gets assumed, and nothing is conscious. It's really just be conscious about these things. These things have to be set up.
Exactly.
And the interesting thing with same-sex couples is that this kind of comes naturally to them because they don't have any roles or any role models to fall back on. Traditionally, women were seen as the caregivers, the keepers, and the men were seen as the going out to get work and bring the money in. And I know that's all different now, but often some of those stereotypical roles still get given to the woman and given to the man. But with same-sex couples, that can't happen, because some same-sex couples that I know, they had to sit down. One had to sit down and say, like, right, I'm the one that's going to work, and you're the one that's going to look after the kids.
Wow, that's very interesting.
So there are some really good lessons to learn from same-sex couples.
Great. I'll do a shout out to my brother-in-law who's getting married soon. Woohoo! To his wonderful fiance, Josh. So hi, Josh. Okay. So there's my little squirrel moment. Great. So so I think those are really great points. I think that we could probably talk about this question for an hour, but maybe we should move on to the next one. So thank you so much for helping give some insight on how we can start to make more time. It is definitely about those conscious choices. And so having to shift from letting life control you to you controlling your life is such a, bigger part of this whole relationship piece. And I think we also, need to remember also there's that relationship with ourself where we need to make time for that relationship with ourself too. So even if it's 30 minutes of journal work, or 30 minutes of, or even, 30 minutes going to the nail salon and getting your nails done and just being in silence, that's self-care. So be in relationship with others, but also be in relationship with yourself. Awesome. All right. So here's the third and last question for the day. It is, how do you set healthy boundaries in a relationship? So this person mentioned that codependency is common in those partnership type relationships. And how can people have a healthy interdependent relationship instead?
Okay. So when couples come together, typically that we're in a relationship, and we can actually think actually we become the relationship. So those two people sort of become sort of molded into this relationship, and they become it. And that's great, especially at first. You just feel so much in love, and you don't want to be apart. But being like that for the rest of your life just doesn't work, okay? Because you're just going to start to kind of wither, and it's just not. There's nothing else that can get in there. So, good way, and again, this has to be conscious, and this has to be something that you can do regularly, like every month, ideally. So you think of, so you've got partner A and you've got partner B, and then you think of the relationship as what we call a third thing. So you can actually do it in a workshop. What we do is have a circle in the floor, and that is called the relationship. There are two people either side of standing on that circle, and they're looking into the relationship. They're not the relationship. They're, April and Graham, and we're looking into the relationship. So we are not the relationship, but we're going to create the relationship. So it's something that partners create together. So, I ask you, what do you want to put into a relationship? And you'll ask me, what do I want to put in a relationship? And then what do you want to get out of the relationship? And what do I want to get out of the relationship? So it's a conscious exercise that you do, consciously looking at the relationship as what we call a third entity. It's a third thing. So there are three things. There's you, there's me, and there's the relationship. And that really helps take away the sort of emotive aspects of a relationship. Thinking of it takes away all that emotion. And if things aren't working, we can go back to that and say, right, there's something not working within the relationship. And that doesn't mean I don't have to blame you and you don't have to blame me. There's something wrong with the system, with what we've created. It's not working for us right now. And that's how it should be, because relationships will change. You change, I change. We're always changing. So the relationship has to change too. And that's another key thing that people, they get married and that's it. They think that's it for the rest of their life. But no, everything's changing. It's always changing. So you're always going to have to keep coming back and looking at that relationship. So, okay, relationship's not really working. What's not working? What do we need to put into it? What do we want to get out of it now? The kids have left home. So our relationship is different. How do we want our relationship to be now? It's all co-designing how we want to be together and how do we want to be supported. And you have to put into it 100%. I have to put into 100%, and then we both get out of it 100%. But no less than 100% and no more than 100%. So you're always giving it your all, and I'm always giving it my all. And that might look different on different days or different, in different periods of a relationship, but you're always giving 100% of what you've got into the relationship.
Yeah. So I heard a lot of, I think it's really, really important to, have your individual you and bringing the relationship together. So there are those two facets, April in the relationship and April, the individual, and making sure that those lines don't cross. And I have definitely been guilty of being codependent and not having my own identity for a long time, until maybe about, oh my God, is it 5 years now, where I realized, my husband was always telling me, you don't have any passions. It's just like everything's in the family. You're going to burn out. And this, you need to have your own, little thing for you. And so now that I have that, I'm much happier, and it makes the relationship stronger, which I think is also something that we tend to forget. We want to give to the relationship, but in order to fuel the relationship, we also need to fuel ourselves. And then you also had mentioned, just even reflecting, because relationships change. And so as you move through the phases, what may be working in one time, whether it be 1 month later or 1 year later or 5 years later, the situation might change. And so how do you work as a team to create a new boundary for that relationship? So constant reflection, constant communication sounds like it's really, really important. And again, making those conscious choices instead of just assuming that, you know what your roles are in the relationship, and becoming very dependent on it. So
and for all those questions, I mean, communication is vital. You've got to communicate in all of those questions that you ask. And you've got to be listening. You've got to be listening to your partner. You've also got to be listening to what's happening in the relationship, listening to what's happening in the space or in the home. Things don't feel right. So let's just talk about that. And it might not feel right to me, but it might be all right for you. But if something's not right, then we have to talk about it.
Or it never changes.
Just because it's all right for you, that means that the relationship isn't working for me. So we need to talk this through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great. They're good questions. And
talking
is so important.
Yeah.
Don't make the assumptions, make sure that you're being interpreted the right way. So I think, for me, I think the biggest takeaways from our conversation is, know that, relationships involve conscious choice. Don't forget about the relationship with yourself, and constantly communicate. The best thing that you can do in a relationship is to ask questions that you can either answer on your own if it's a relationship with yourself, or with whoever you're having the relationship with. That communication, whether it is comfortable or not comfortable, is going to strengthen the relationship further. Any other last words to add on?
I would just add that when you're asking questions, always come from a place of curiosity.
Yeah.
It's quite easy to come from a place of judgment, or the questions could be loaded. But just to keep that judgment out of it, and just genuinely come from that place of curiosity in service of the relationship. Great.
Awesome. Well, this was fun. I didn't want to make it too long, but I think that we got some really great conversation in on this. And thank you, Graham, for talking this out with me. And one of the real big pushes for me this year is communication. And so, just even having this conversation with somebody else, and, not just being the talking head is so great. So I'm happy to have you here and connect with you, because you're all the way in the UK. And so just for my audience who's checking this out, and you can share this with your audience as well, how can people get a hold of you?
So probably the easiest way is just to go onto my website, which is saperecoaching.com, which is spelled SAPERE, coaching.com. And that sapere is Latin, and it means wisdom. It means that inner wisdom, which is why I chose that. And it's just all this inner wisdom is all within us all the time, and it's just really needling our way in there and getting that wisdom out.
Yes.
So that's saperecoaching.com.
Great. And Graham has these, he's such a wonderful writer, and I love getting emails from him, and they make me think about relationship. It's another way to kind of prioritize relationship, to just have that opportunity to read something and reflect on how that relates to whatever I'm going through. So you should check him out, and, sign up for his newsletters if you want to.
Yep. Yeah, you can sign up for the newsletter. That's on the website, and you get a free gift with that as well too.
Yes. And then for anybody else watching this video, you know that you can reach me at thecheerfulmind.com, and I am the author of Finding Success in Balance, My Journey to the Cheerful Mind, which comes out on March 21st. All right. Thank you so much, Graham. I'm going to cut this video now. And bottom line, everyone, care about your relationships, prioritize your relationships, and always communicate, always reflect. All right. Thank you guys so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.